Okay, Leader, if you'd like to commence, it's now 1:30. Thank you.
Right, there we go, all online and hopefully everything working. Good afternoon all. This is the meeting of the Senior Management Appointment Committee of today, Tuesday the 4th of June. And I'm chairing the meeting as Leader of the Council and Chair of the committee. It will be recorded and also live streamed, but it is a remote meeting. Obviously, if there were any part 2 items, then the live streaming would be shut off for that. But I think it's all fairly straightforward today, so we can move straight into the agenda formally, and that's with part agenda item 1. This is apologies for absence. I'm not aware of us having any looking online. I think we've got everyone here. So can I just double check that with the Democratic Services officers?
Yes, Chair, I didn't see Councillor Carroll, but I understand he's online with us. Thank you.
I can't hear Karen, but I'm assuming she's saying everything's fine.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Carroll is the only one I can't see.
He is on my list.
Yeah, so, and he's on our list here, but I haven't actually seen him to check his audio. But as far as I'm concerned, every member is present now. Thanks.
Yeah. Would it be worth just to double check Councillor Carroll's connection so that he's formally in the meeting? Councillor Carroll, could you come online just to? So. Well, I'm sure Councillor Carroll will be wanting to make a comment during the meeting, so we'll deal with it at that point, I think. So, agenda item 2 is the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of April 2024. So, can I take those as a true reflection of the meeting? I'm happy to move.
And I'll second that, Leader.
Thank you. And are we all in agreement? I can see that we've got Councillor Carroll online now. Okay. If you could speak as well, then we're covered.
Could everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying to speak before, but I hadn't pressed the button, so that would explain why.
There we are. Okay, that's super. So I can't hear any dissent in terms of the minutes, so we'll take those as agreed. Agenda item 3 is to receive any declarations of interest, and if there are any, the nature of such interests. I haven't been notified of any, so I'm assuming that we haven't any. Yeah. Agenda item 4 is the report of the Chief Executive. That's the main business of this meeting, relating to the recruitment and selection details for the posts of Head of ALN and Wellbeing, Head of Neighbourhood Services, and the Operational Manager, who's the statutory Head of Democratic Services. So I'm assuming that we have someone's going to go through these, or else otherwise I'm quite happy to do that.
The Chief Executive is online, Leader.
Yeah, Rob, if you want to go through this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As you say, this report covers 3 posts. One is the Head of ALN and Wellbeing. The other post is Head of Neighbourhood Services. And the third post is the Operational Manager, the statutory Head of Democratic Services. 2 of the posts, the latter and the Head of Neighbourhood Services, have come about as a consequence of retirement of the current post holders. And the third one, the Head of ALN and Wellbeing, has come about as a consequence of the retirement of the Director of Learning and Skills and subsequent changes within the Directorate as a consequence of that post becoming free, which members will be aware of. So the report sets out the process to be followed and seeks authority to go to advert as soon as possible after this meeting. The aim will be to look at producing a long list shortly after the advertisement closes later on this month, and then progress to technical interviews for all 3 posts, and then bring the final shortlist of candidates back before this Senior Management Appointments Committee, and that's likely to be late July by the time we get to that stage. And the processes that we will be following will be very similar to the processes we followed previously for posts of this nature, as you'd expect: technical interview, presentation, and various panels to discuss and to consider suitability for going forward to the shortlisting phase. So I won't say any more at this juncture, but happy to take any questions.
Super. Thanks, Rob. That's fairly straightforward. I've got some recommendations for us, but before I do that, does anybody want to come in? Oh, yes, George, I can see your hands up.
Yeah, it's not so much of a question, but more of a point I'd like to raise. I'm conscious that when this committee has brought candidates before it before, we've ended up with a choice of one. I'd just like to emphasise my preference, my strong preference, that we do get a choice of candidates to assess when it comes to the final interview stage, so that we are able to compare candidates and make an informed choice based upon that.
Yeah, thanks, George. I think that's actually the ideal scenario. I think that at the moment, quite often in local government, with the pressures, etc., that are on local government officers, we often don't have a selection of appointable candidates. And I suppose it's something that we've discussed, haven't we, in other committees, is it a good use of our time? But similarly, is it a good use of, or is it helpful to candidates to bring people to interview who we actually wouldn't consider appointing? So, you know, we can tick a box, but are we actually going to achieve anything by doing that? So I tend to, on this, defer to people with the expertise within the organisation to actually talk through how we ended up getting to the shortlisting situation. And you know, I think that is normally when we get to interview stage, officers are very, very happy to be questioned on the process that's been followed and the decisions that have been advised. So I can see that Rob's got his hand up. So if you want to come back in, Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to respond to the point, really, in similar vein, we will, of course, endeavour to bring as many of the suitable candidates as possible back before Senior Management Appointments Committee, provided they are suitable for the post in question. So, yeah, clearly, it would be my favoured option to bring more than one, even more than 2 or 3 back before you, so that we have a choice. But I would agree that there is very little point bringing people back before you if they were not suitable for the role. Hopefully, with the adverts going out for in excess of 2 weeks, we will get sufficient numbers of applicants to bring a reasonable selection back before Senior Management's Appointments Committee in due course.
Super. Thanks, Rob. That's really helpful. So, without any further hands up or comments, as I said, we've got 2 recommendations before us, and the second has got a sort of sub recommendations. So the first one is it's recommended that Senior Management Appointments Committee approve the recruitment and selection arrangements at this meeting of the committee as described within the report for the 3 positions in the body of this report. And secondly, it's recommended that delegated authority be granted to Chief Executive in consultation with the relevant Cabinet member, Service Director and Head of HR and Organisational Development to progress. And that's firstly the advertising of the positions, secondly progressing the necessary arrangements for long listing and any necessary assessment of candidates in advance of shortlisting. And thirdly, that the drawing up a final shortlist for interviews, the interviews of which will be undertaken by future meetings of this committee, and finally, to agree costings and resource requirements relating to the processes required to pursue the recruitment and selection processes. But as you see later in the report, that is all covered in existing budgets. So on that basis, I would move.
And I'll second those recommendations.
Thank you. Is everyone happy with that? I'm not. Oh, Eddie sort of put his hand up, so I'm assuming that's to say yes. There we are.
Yeah.
So thanks, Eddie. So we'll take that as agreed. So we don't have any urgent items under Part 1, and I don't have any Part 2 items on this. So it just remains for me to thank you for your attendance and close the meeting. So thank you all.